I'm Victoria, and I guess you could say I was born with a silver spoon in my mouth. Not that we were filthy rich or anything, but my childhood was pretty damn good. Mom and Dad? They were like something out of a rom-com, always holding hands, stealing kisses when they thought I wasn't looking. We lived in this cozy little house in the suburbs. Nothing fancy, but it was home. Every weekend was like a mini adventure. Dad would pack us all into our beat-up station wagon, and off we'd go. Sometimes it was a hike in the nearby state park, other times a trip to the local cinema to catch the latest blockbuster. School was, well, school. I wasn't the popular kid, but I wasn't the outcast either. Just your average student trying to navigate the minefield of adolescence. I had a small group of friends, real friends, not those fake ones who only hang around when it's convenient. High school flew by in a blur of exams, awkward school dances, and late-night study sessions fueled by too much caffeine and junk food. Before I knew it, graduation was looming on the horizon. I remember sitting at the kitchen table with Mom and Dad, a stack of college brochures spread out in front of us. "So, Vicky," Dad said, his reading glasses perched on the end of his nose, "any idea what you want to do with your life?" I took a deep breath. This was it. The moment I'd been both dreading and looking forward to. "I want to be a cardiologist," I blurted out. Mom and Dad exchanged one of those looks that parents seem to perfect, a whole conversation without a single word. "All right," Dad finally said. "If this is what you really want, we'll make it happen." Getting into med school was just the beginning. The next 4 years were even more intense than undergrad. There were times I thought my brain might explode from all the information I was trying to cram into it. But there were amazing moments too. The first time I successfully drew blood from a patient, after a few embarrassing misses. The day I correctly diagnosed a heart murmur during rounds. The moment I realized that all this hard work was actually turning me into a doctor. Graduation day was surreal. As I walked across the stage to receive my diploma, I saw my parents in the audience. Mom was crying, of course, and even Dad looked misty-eyed. As we left the auditorium, Dad threw his arm around my shoulders. "So, Dr. Adams," he said with a grin, "what's next?" I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the future on my shoulders. "Now," I said, "I become a cardiologist." Little did I know, my journey was far from over. In fact, the real challenges were just beginning. Fresh out of med school, I dove headfirst into my career at a private clinic in the city. The hours were long and grueling, but I loved every minute of it. I was finally doing what I'd dreamed of for so long, helping people, saving lives. As the months flew by, my hard work started to pay off. My bank account grew, and for the first time in my life, I had more money than I knew what to do with. On a whim, I walked into a car dealership one day and drove out in a sleek new sedan. It wasn't flashy, but it was mine, bought with my own hard-earned money. A few months later, I signed the mortgage papers on a spacious apartment in a nice part of town. As I stood in the empty living room, keys in hand, I couldn't help but feel a sense of accomplishment. I was living the dream I'd worked so hard for. With the holidays approaching, I decided to take a few days off to visit my parents. I hadn't seen them in months, and I was excited to share my success with them. But as soon as I walked through the door of my childhood home, I knew something was off. The house was quiet, too quiet. Mom and Dad were in the same room, but they might as well have been on different planets. The warm, loving atmosphere I remembered was gone, replaced by a cold, uncomfortable silence. At dinner, the tension was palpable. Mom and Dad barely looked at each other, let alone spoke. I tried to fill the silence with stories about work, but my words fell flat in the frosty air between them. Later that night, I cornered Mom in the kitchen while she was doing the dishes. "Mom, what's going on?" I asked, keeping my voice low. "You and Dad, you're acting like strangers." Mom's hand stilled in the soapy water. She didn't turn around, but I could see the tension in her shoulders. "It's nothing, honey," she said, her voice tight. "People change, that's all. Your father and we're just different people now." But I knew my mother. I could hear the pain behind her words. Mom, please, tell me the truth. She sighed, finally turning to face me. The sadness in her eyes broke my heart. Your father, he got a promotion at work a few months ago. With it came a personal assistant, a young woman. My stomach dropped. Mom, are you saying? She nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. He's been staying late at the office, more and more. I think she might be his mistress. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. My dad, the man I'd idolized my whole life, cheating on my mom? It didn't seem possible. I'm going to talk to him, I said, anger rising in my chest. How dare he do this to you? No, Victoria, Mom said, grabbing my arm. I've already decided. I'm going to file for divorce. I've talked to a lawyer, everything's planned out. I stared at her in shock. Divorce? But can't you work it out? She smiled sadly. Some things can't be fixed, sweetheart. And I don't want you to get caught in the middle of this. I have no hard feelings towards your father, and I don't want you to either. These things, they happen in life. We need to be understanding. I couldn't believe how calm she was being about all this. If it were me, I'd be furious, devastated. But here was my mom, handling it all with grace and dignity. The divorce hit like a hurricane, leaving destruction in its wake. Mom, bless her heart, didn't go down without a fight. She demanded half of everything and extra compensation for Dad's infidelity. To his credit, Dad didn't argue. He paid up without a fuss. But the real kicker? Before the ink was dry on the divorce papers, Dad married his assistant. His mistress, my new stepmother. I nearly choked when I saw her. She couldn't have been more than a few years older than me. 22 years younger than Dad, for crying out loud. She was closer to being my friend than my stepmother. Not that I wanted anything to do with her. I kept my distance, limiting my interactions with Dad and his child bride to bare necessities. It hurt to see him with her, to see how quickly he'd moved on while Mom was still picking up the pieces. Just when I thought things couldn't get more complicated, life threw me another curveball. I got an offer to work at a prestigious clinic in another city. 2 years, great pay, and a chance to study under Dr. Harriet Chen, one of the most renowned cardiologists in the country. It was the opportunity of a lifetime. I called Mom as soon as I got the news. That's wonderful, sweetheart, she exclaimed, genuine joy in her voice. You have to take it. This could be huge for your career. Her enthusiasm was infectious. For the first time in months, I felt excitement bubbling up inside me. This was my chance for a fresh start, away from all the drama. Word of my impending move must have spread because Dad called me the next day. Vicky, he said, his voice hesitant, I heard you're moving. Yeah, Dad. Got a great job offer in. He cut me off. Listen, I need to ask you something. It's a bit awkward. Things at work, they're not great. My income's taken a hit. I was wondering, could Sarah and I use your apartment while you're gone? And maybe, borrow your car? I was speechless. After everything that had happened, he had the nerve to ask this? I don't know, Dad. I need to think about it. I hung up, my mind whirling. Part of me wanted to tell him to get lost. But another part, he was still my dad. I called Mom, dreading her reaction. To my surprise, she was calm. It's your apartment, your car, Victoria, she said. You're an adult. You get to decide what to do with your things. I won't be offended, whatever you choose. Her maturity made me feel small and petty. After a sleepless night, I called Dad and agreed. The day I handed over the keys was surreal. Dad looked sheepish, but Sarah, she had this smug look that made my skin crawl. As I handed Dad the keys, Sarah piped up. Well, isn't this nice? The keys finally returning to their rightful owner. She nodded at Dad with a simpering smile. I stared at her, then at Dad, confusion and anger bubbling up inside me. Dad quickly pulled me aside. "Vicky, honey," he whispered, "I need you to play along. I may have told Sarah that the apartment and car are mine. That I've just been letting you use them." I gaped at him, unable to believe what I was hearing. This man, who I'd admired my whole life, was asking me to lie. To pretend I hadn't worked my ass off for everything I owned. In that moment, something inside me broke. The last shred of respect I had for my father vanished. I looked at him, this stranger wearing my dad's face, and made a decision. Without a word, I turned and walked out of my own apartment. 2 days later, I was on a plane to my new life in a new city. As the plane took off, I felt a weight lifting off my shoulders. For 2 years, I wouldn't have to deal with any of this drama. I could focus on my work, on becoming the best doctor I could be. The 2 years in the new city flew by like a dream. I kept in touch with Mom regularly, our weekly Skype calls a lifeline to home. She looked better each time, the sparkle returning to her eyes as she built her new life. Dad, on the other hand, was a different story. Our calls were audio only. He claimed he couldn't figure out all this newfangled video stuff. I didn't push it. Hearing his voice was hard enough. I wasn't sure I could handle seeing him with his new wife. When my contract ended, I returned to my old city with mixed feelings. I was excited to start back at my old clinic, but dreading the family drama I'd left behind. The day I went to reclaim my apartment, I stood outside the familiar door, key in hand, heart pounding. But when I tried to unlock it, the key wouldn't turn. Frowning, I knocked loudly. The door swung open, revealing Sarah's annoyed face. "Oh," she said flatly. "It's you." I pushed past her into the apartment and froze, my jaw dropping. The place was unrecognizable. Gone were my tasteful, muted colors, replaced by garish bright hues that hurt my eyes. My carefully chosen furniture had vanished, switched out for modern pieces that clashed horribly with the overall design. But the real shock came when I stepped into what used to be my bedroom. It had been transformed into a nursery, complete with a crib and changing table. "What the hell is this?" I demanded, whirling to face Sarah. She smirked, resting a hand on her very pregnant belly. "We needed to make some changes. This is our home, after all." "Your home?" I sputtered. "This is my apartment." Sarah's eyes narrowed. "No, this is your father's apartment. He's just been letting you stay here out of the kindness of his heart. And now, as his wife, I'm the lady of the house." I opened my mouth to argue, to tell her the truth, but something made me hesitate. The sight of her swollen belly cooled my anger. I couldn't bring myself to stress out a pregnant woman, no matter how infuriating she was. I spent the next few hours seething, pacing the garishly redecorated living room. When Dad finally walked through the door, I pounced. "Dad, we need to talk. Now." He nodded, looking tired. "I know, Vicky, let's step outside." Once we were alone, I let loose. "What the hell, Dad? You let her completely trash my apartment? And what's this bullshit about it being your place?" He held up his hands placatingly. I know. It's complicated, sweetie." I couldn't bring myself to tell her the truth. "Things at work, they're not good. If Sarah knew we were living off your charity. Please, Vicky, don't kick us out. Not with the baby coming." I wanted to be angry. I wanted to scream and rage and throw them both out on their ears. But looking at my father, this broken, pleading version of the strong man I once knew, I couldn't do it. "Fine," I said through gritted teeth. "We'll figure something out." Relief washed over his face. "Thank you, sweetheart. Oh, and there's one more thing." I braced myself. "What?" "I may have given Sarah your car. When I found out about the baby, I wanted to do something nice for her. I'll pay you back, I promise." I closed my eyes, counting to 10 in my head. "It's fine, Dad. The clinic's not far, I can walk." He kissed my hand, his eyes brimming with gratitude. You're an angel, Vicky. We'll make this work, you'll see. As I watched him go back inside, I tried to convince myself this could work. I'd be at the clinic most of the time anyway. Maybe I could even learn to get along with Sarah. I threw myself into work with renewed vigor. The clinic became my sanctuary, a place where I could escape the tension at home. I'd leave before dawn and return long after dark, tiptoeing through the apartment to avoid waking Sarah or the newborn baby. 2 months into this routine, fate threw me a lifeline. I was grabbing a quick coffee at my favorite cafe when I quite literally bumped into him. Tall, with kind eyes and a crooked smile, Jake was charming from the moment he helped me mop up my spilled latte. "I'm so sorry," he said, handing me a wad of napkins. "Can I buy you a replacement?" One coffee turned into dinner, which turned into more dates. Before I knew it, we were seeing each other regularly. For the first time in months, I felt light, happy. Jake was funny, smart, and best of all, completely removed from my family drama. I started spending more and more time at his place, relishing the peace and normalcy. It was a blissful respite from the chaos at home. But reality has a way of intruding. One evening, I arrived home to find Sarah waiting for me, her face like thunder. "Where have you been?" she demanded, bouncing a fussy baby on her hip. I blinked, taken aback by her tone. "At work, then out." "Why?" She thrust a mop at me. "This place is a mess. Your father can't afford a housekeeper, so you need to pull your weight around here. I'm busy with the baby." Anger flared in my chest. "I'm not your maid, Sarah. I work 60-hour weeks saving lives. I'm not spending my free time cleaning up after you." Her face contorted with rage. "You ungrateful little freeloader. Living off your father's generosity and you can't even help out? Maybe we should kick you out, see how you like that." I couldn't help it, I laughed. The sheer audacity of her threat was almost impressive. "Good luck with that," I said, turning away. For the next few days, I ignored Sarah's pointed looks and passive-aggressive comments about the state of the apartment. I focused on work and on Jake, counting the hours until I could escape to his place. Then, one afternoon, my world imploded. My phone rang, it was Jake. "Hey, you," I answered, smiling. "I was just thinking about you." "It's over," he cut me off, his voice cold. I felt like I'd been doused in ice water. "What? Jake, what are you talking about?" "Don't play dumb, Victoria. You know exactly what I'm talking about. I can't believe I fell for your act." "Jake, I honestly have no idea." "Save it," he snapped. "We're done." The line went dead. I stared at my phone, stunned. What the hell had just happened? Seconds later, a message popped up. It was from Jake, a photo. My heart stopped as I opened it. It was me, locked in a passionate kiss with a man who definitely wasn't Jake. Except, it wasn't me. The woman in the photo looked like me, but something was off. The hair wasn't quite right, the posture, not quite mine. Realization dawned, along with a wave of fury. Sarah. This had Sarah written all over it. I tried calling Jake back, desperate to explain, but my calls went straight to voicemail. Text messages bounced back, undelivered. He'd blocked me. I stormed into the apartment, fury radiating from every pore. Sarah sat on the couch, a smug smile playing on her lips. She knew exactly what she'd done. "You," I snarled, advancing on her. "What the hell have you done?" Sarah's laugh was like nails on a chalkboard. "It was easy, really. A little Photoshop here, a few messages there. You'd be surprised what people will believe when they're jealous." The casual way she admitted to destroying my relationship made my blood boil. "You fabricated that photo? And what messages?" "Oh, just a few posts on social media about how you're dating multiple men, looking for someone richer than your boyfriend. You know, the usual gold digger stuff." I was speechless with rage. How could someone be so callous, so cruel? Sarah's eyes narrowed. Now listen here, princess. You're going to start pulling your weight around here. Clean the house, do the laundry, take care of the baby when I need a break. Or else. Or else what? I spat. Or else I'll make sure your daddy knows what an ungrateful brat you are. He'll kick you out so fast your head will spin. That was it. The final straw. I threw my head back and laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. You really don't get it, do you? I said, my voice dangerously low. This is MY apartment. I bought it with MY money. You're the ones who'll be out on the street if you don't apologize and help me fix things with Jake. Sarah's face contorted with rage. She opened her mouth to retort, but just then, the front door opened. Dad walked in, looking tired and confused at the tableau before him. Sarah immediately launched into a tirade. John, you won't believe what your daughter just said. She's threatening to kick us out. After everything we've done for her. She's an ungrateful, selfish bitch and I want her gone. Dad's eyes met mine, pleading. He leaned in close, whispering, Vicky, please. Just go along with it. Move out for a while. We'll sort this out later. I stared at him in disbelief. My own father, asking me to leave my own home. Something snapped inside me. No, I said, my voice steady and cold. I'm done playing along. This is my apartment. You two have until tonight to get out, or I'm calling the police and having you removed. Dad's face darkened. After everything I've done for you? I paid for your education. Your fancy medical degree. And I've more than repaid that by letting you live here rent-free and use my car, I shot back. We're even. Now get out. Sarah was screaming obscenities, Dad was trying to reason with me, but I stood firm. I watched in stony silence as they packed their things, Sarah alternating between cursing me and sobbing dramatically. As they walked out the door, Dad turned to me one last time. You'll regret this, Victoria. Mark my words. The silence in my newly reclaimed apartment was deafening. As I sat there, surrounded by the garish remnants of Sarah's decorating spree, I felt a sudden surge of determination. No more sacrifices. No more adjusting my life to accommodate others' lies and manipulations. It was time to take control. With shaking hands, I picked up my phone and called the one person I knew I could always count on, my mom. Mom, I said, my voice cracking. I need to talk to you. I poured out everything, the lies, the manipulation, the final confrontation. Mom listened patiently, her calm presence a balm to my frayed nerves. Oh, honey, she said when I finished. I'm so proud of you for standing up for yourself. You did the right thing. Her words were like a warm embrace. Thanks, Mom, but I've lost Jake. Sarah ruined everything. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Maybe not. Give me Jake's number. Mom, what are you? Trust me, sweetheart. I've got this. Bewildered but hopeful, I gave her the number. The next day, I received a text from Mom asking me to meet her at our favorite cafe. When I arrived, my heart nearly stopped. There, sitting across from my mother, was Jake. Mom waved me over, a mischievous glint in her eye. Sit down, Victoria. Jake and I were just having a lovely chat. Over the next hour, Mom laid out the whole sordid tale, Sarah's lies, Dad's deceptions, all of it. Jake listened, his face a mix of shock, anger, and shame. When Mom finished, Jake turned to me, his eyes brimming with remorse. Victoria, I'm so sorry. I should have trusted you, should have given you a chance to explain. I wanted to forgive him, but the hurt was still raw. You believed the worst of me so easily, Jake. How can I trust you won't do it again? To my utter shock, Jake slid out of his chair and dropped to one knee in the middle of the busy cafe. Victoria Adams, I love you. I was an idiot, and I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you if you'll let me. Please, forgive me? The cafe had gone silent, all eyes on us. I felt a blush creeping up my neck, but looking into Jake's earnest eyes, I found my anger melting away. "Oh, get up, you big idiot," I said, tugging him to his feet. "Of course I forgive you." The cafe erupted in applause as Jake swept me into a kiss. Mom wiped away a tear, beaming at us both. Life has a funny way of working out. A couple of months later, we heard through the grapevine that Sarah had run off with a younger man, leaving Dad and the baby behind. She'd finally realized that Dad had no money or property to his name. Dad, in his desperation, tried to reconcile with Mom, but she refused him. 3 years passed in a whirlwind of love, laughter, and career success. When Jake proposed, properly this time on a moonlit beach, I didn't hesitate to say yes. Our wedding day was perfect. Mom walked me down the aisle, radiant with joy. As I exchanged vows with Jake, I caught sight of an empty seat in the back, the one reserved for Dad. He hadn't come. A pang of sadness hit me, but as I looked back at Jake, at Mom, at all the people who truly loved and supported me, I realized I had everything I needed.